the City of New Britain. Building hope together for a greater community.
Okay. Formally, we're opening a public participation. Good evening, everyone. At 7:01 p.m. This is for the special council meeting we're previously discussing on the bonding issue. If anyone would like to speak to the public participation now for only the bonding issue, I don't think we have anybody who's signed up, but if there's anybody in the audience that would like to speak to that, please come forward. Again, if there's anyone who would like to speak toward the bonding issue on this particular special meeting effort. A third time, anyone who would like to speak on public participation for this bonding issue only? Seeing none then, we will close the, at 7:02, the actual public participation for the special session.
All right, I would like to call this meeting of the Common Council, a special meeting of the Common Council to order. The time is 7:03 p.m. Mr. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Alderpersons Giantonio. Here. Smedley.
Present.
Carlozzi.
Here.
Black. Collins.
Present.
Davis.
Here.
Hargraves.
Here.
Naples.
Here.
Pabon. Here. Polkowski.
Present.
Rosato.
Here.
Salvio.
Here.
Sanchez.
Here.
Sanders.
Present.
Salerno.
Here.
14 present, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. For the reading of the warrant,
Mayor's warrant to the
Your
clerk
Honor.
of the...
Alderman Giantonio.
Make a motion to waive the reading of the warrant.
Seconded by Alderman Salvio. All those in favor of the reading of the warrant signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Sorry, Mr. Clerk, to cut you off. Mr. Giantonio.
Your Honor, make a motion to accept and adopt item number 1.
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Salerno.
This is just the report from the Standing Bonding Subcommittee, and I urge approval.
Any questions or comments on the report? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Alderman Giantonio.
Thank you, Your Honor. I make a motion to accept and adopt resolution number 2.
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Salerno.
Thank you, Your Honor. This is the resolution acting upon the $28 million appropriation and bond authorization. There are representatives from Finance, our bond counsel, and William Blair here to answer any questions that anyone might have. We did just talk about this 4 minutes ago, but if anyone has any other questions.
Questions or Alderman Rosato?
Through you, Your Honor.
Sure. If we'd like to
Quick,
ask
to
Mr.
the
Thiebridge
gentleman
to.
that, forgot to do so, yeah.
Mr. Thiebridge.
Yes, thank you. Looking at the, when you presented to us, the thing that sticks out to me right now is the municipal yield curve comparison. Now, I know that when it comes to a yield curve graph, that there's 3 types of scenario. You have your normal, your flat, and your inverted. So, from what I'm seeing here, this is a normal, a normal scenario when in regards to the municipal yield curve, correct?
Quasi normal, you would normally, or usually, if it were in like a traditional environment that you're talking about,
Right.
you would normally have more of a correlation between the years. In other words, where rates were a few years ago would have been in same relationship to here. Here we've got a crossover in the front, as I mentioned before, in terms of if you look at the first 5-6 years of the yield curve, actually higher than the previous several years. So that would be, it's kind of a normal curve. It's a little abnormal in terms of its relationship to the other rates. When you were talking about a steep yield curve, if you look at that purple line, 16,
Yes.
that would be what you would describe as a steep yield curve.
Right.
This is kind of a normal curve, maybe a little flat, but kind of normal.
Now, when you say a little flat, why would you say
Well,
that?
if you, here again, it goes up in the first, the steepness of the green line in the first 4 years is pretty steep, and then you see it kind of, it flattens a little, and then at the back end is very flat from 17. So,
And is that because that shorter and long-term yields are very close to each other?
well, short-term rates have been going up because of the Fed.
Right.
The Fed's been increasing the rates.
Right.
There's more people thinking, rates are gonna go up in the near term. So you're seeing a pressure on the front end of the curve.
Now, is there, now when it comes to,
I'm
I
glad
guess-
you're referring to this, because
yeah,
it's my favorite
to me, it's the
chart.
most important part of the whole thing, at least to me. But I think one of the things about when it comes to the yield curve, we're dealing with something that's called like a spread, of course, where you have whatever percentage you're paying on a long-term bond in comparison to a short-term bond. So do you have that number, what the spread may be?
In terms of where the rates are gonna be, no, I don't have that breakout, but essentially, we've been seeing rates increasing from where we were last year. Before the election, rates were probably 60 to 80 basis points lower across the curve. Since the election, rates have gone up anywhere from 60 to 80 basis points, depending on your credit. We've got, city recently received an upgrade in its rating, so in looking at the spreads, your spreads are gonna be a little better because your rating's better.
Right.
So that was positive news for the city.
Thank you for answering my questions.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions for Mr. Thiebridge while he's up here? Alderman Sanchez.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just
You want
quickly.
me or Chubwick?
Say that again?
You want me or Bruce Chubwick?
I don't know yet. We'll figure it
All
out.
right.
Within the language itself of the resolution, what was clear was the $28 million appropriation and bond authorization to refund any of the city's outstanding general bond obligations. With that being said, there was some areas that were unclear to me, and I had a couple of questions.
Okay.
So I think one of the questions that I had was answered, but the word funding in the nonprofit secular world usually means refinancing. And I understand that refinancing is a common practice and a smart thing to do in the event that the rates are low. Is that the case here today?
Well, this is a refunding resolution. And as Dick had mentioned, rates are going up. So this deal is going to be structured in two different parts with some taxable refunding and some tax exempt refunding. And there will be a slight, as Dick had said in the bonding subcommittee meeting, there will be a slight cost to the city to do the restructuring for this, but the idea is to level out the debt service. So it's not like a traditional refunding where rates have gone down and you refinance in order to get a lower rate. This is a different transaction. It's a restructuring transaction of your existing debt.
Okay.
Okay.
With that being said, so are these GOs specific to any purchases or capital improvements? Is there anybody that can answer that?
Right. Yeah, I've talked to Alderman Carlozzi about this a little bit. This refunding transaction will be going back and refunding some outstanding maturities of your 2014, 2015, and 2016 bonds. Those bonds were issued, some of them, to refund bonds going back to 06, 07, 08, 10, 11. Those bonds way back when financed new money projects, okay? So what we do as bond counsel is we make sure that from a tax exempt standpoint, you are complying with the tax rules, which basically provide that you cannot issue debt for longer than 120% of the useful life of the project. So Congress, the IRS says you cannot you can't bond a computer for 20 years.
Right.
Okay, that's too long. You're abusing the tax exemption of the code. Okay, so we don't go back and track the bond issues to each individual separate project, because in each bond issue you have 20 to 25 projects, and they're all filtered amongst the different maturities of the bonds. All we make sure is that you comply with the federal tax laws, that the projects are long-lived assets, and you can finance them tax exempt. Okay, does that answer your question?
Oh, they did.
Okay.
I appreciate it. So with that being said, what are the terms of our old debt versus what we would assume to be the terms of our new debt structurally?
Structurally, I think that's covered a little bit in the package that was handed out.
Page?
And I have to turn that back over to Dick, but if you go to, I think it's page 8 of the handout. You take a look at that. That's
Underwriter question. Yeah, that's, you can see those are the bonds we're refunding our you know, you've got the refunded bonds plus the new debt service that we're putting on. So the combination gets you the new debt service. Is that your question?
Yeah, to some extent. So what are the pros and the cons here? I mean, everything comes with risk.
Well, pros and cons are, I think if you look at that graph, we've got to put some on page 9.
Okay.
If you look at where the existing debt is and we put new debt on there, you know, we get into a big increase in debt. So what we're trying to do is push, if you go on to previous page 8, you can see what we're trying to do is levelize that debt service. So instead of 28, 29, you'd be 21, 23, 27. Now, obviously, when we get above 23, 27, I think we're going to have to do something to try to get rid of those 35, 39, 34s. So I think this, to be honest, it should be viewed as a phase, as we've done previous phases, to try to take out this big increase in debt service that the city's faced with. You know, we've got what complicates the problem here is we've got new debt service, the projects that were authorized in some cases years ago and done. So we've got new debt coming on to an already existing high debt base. So we're trying to, instead of compounding the problem and making the mountain higher, we want to plateau your debt service if we could.
So you had mentioned earlier during the public participations that there were $45 million in new bonds.
Right.
Okay.
That we're adding, that were notes, you had notes that were maturing March March 23rd, I believe.
Okay.
So we've got to make a choice with what to do with those bands, because you can only stay on band anticipation notes, short-term borrowing, for up to 4 years. After 2 years, you begin to get into making pay downs, so it's almost like you've sold bonds. And as I have on that chart I showed you with that red line, short-term rates are starting to go up, long-term rates are starting to go up. So if you were to wait, you know, an alternative would have been that you don't convert the notes to bonds, but you would have had to make some pay downs, and then who knows what interest rates are next year. So, you know, the consensus, and I would never try to mislead you into thinking that I know what interest rates are going to do next year, but, you know, I think the consensus appears to be that we've kind of passed the lows. We're now heading higher. No one knows what the higher will be, but it's gone up, you know, already.
So is this about cost saving?
It's not really about cost savings.
Okay.
It's kind of like it's more about budgetary prudence. We're trying to levelize the impact of debt on the city of New Britain.
So taking $28 million essentially, and throughout the longevity of the bonds issue, essentially you're telling me is that that's going to level off the playing field presently.
It does a little. It offsets the impact of that new 45 million that you're putting on, and we're trying to push that peak. You know, you got a tsunami coming at you. So what we're trying to do is trying to lower the amount of that wave of debt that's coming at you.
And is that tsunami based on theory, or is it based off of?
No, that tsunami is real because you've got 40 million of new debt coming on, and you got the debt service, some of which, like I said, the city did a bond issue. I was not the underwriter at the time, Brother Carlos, but they did a bond issue that had school projects on, and they did it. It was over 30 million, and they did it for 15 years. Well, that shortened up the principal.
Right.
Yeah, and what we're saying is, if you had your debt, if the city had 30% of its debt being retired in 10 years, then shortening the maturity would makes some sense, because you would have capacity. But you've got over 80%
Right.
of your debt coming due in 10 years. With what we're doing here, we're still at 70-something%. Now, if you're Greenwich, bring it on, pay as much debt as you can as soon as you can. Is that cheaper? Sure. But the question is, can you afford to do it? That's an option, that if the answer to that is that the city can afford to pay its debt off this rapidly, then you don't want to do this. If your answer is no, we can't afford to do it, then there's little option as to that we need to do this. We need to get some legislation in place to try to, get some of these maturities smoothed out. And as I said, you're not alone in this. A lot of cities and towns in the state, and not just the guys down the road, have this problem. And so trying to get some relief and also continuity in the statutes. We've got a case of the statutes where they are now is some water and sewer and now schools recently can be done for 30 years. Yet a police station can only be done for 20 years.
Right.
Now, a lot of things you build in this city, firehouses, I think the life is more than 20 years. At least I think a lot of your firehouses are more than 20 years. And your schools are more than 20 years. So to be limited and to have that inconsistency in the statute is something the mayor has taken the initiative of trying to get some legislative changes. She's working with some of the government bodies in the state to try to say, let's bring some consistency to these statutes. Let's everybody be able to go for all capital projects 30 years or 40 years. But like Bruce said, the federal government limits the useful life. So it's not a case of saying willy-nilly we're going to take and borrow money for pencils and bond that out 20 years. We're not talking about that. We're talking about necessary capital projects that the city undertakes.
And it's strictly capital projects.
Oh yeah, we're not there's no bonding for operation expenses here. We're not, to be candid where you may be going because of a lot of reports of other cities, we're not taking a deficit here and trying to borrow for it.
Right. Now, I guess my last question would be, if we aren't structurally paying down that portion of debt that we were supposed to, do we have a perspective as to where that money goes? And does that play a role in how the actual debt restructuring takes place? So I'll give you an example.
Yep.
So you tell us we have about $7 million that we need to pay. We can only afford to pay 3. Where does that other money go that we can't afford to pay? And if in fact that money is coming to the city through forms of taxes, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, if you need to pay 7, you got to pay 7. If we can reduce it, then you don't have to pay it. So, the debt service, you have no option. Whatever it is has to be paid. So principal and interest that comes due has to be paid when it comes due. If we can restructure these bonds so that you're not having to pay $32 million in debt service, whatever it is you're going to pay in debt service, that money will stay in your budget in the city. Otherwise, you would have to appropriate enough money, unless you had it in your budget, you'd have to increase your taxes or pay the money to bring it up to the 32 million in debt service. And if you're at this page, on page 8, if you're at 21, and then we go to 23, well, if we can, and then 27, if we can levelize that jump between 27 and 35, that'll be less money that you'll have to appropriate out of your budget. And that's what my point earlier was, when debt service gets to be this high, being repaid this rapidly, it now conflicts with your ability to meet other governmental services that you need to do.
When we were here 2 years ago, obviously, as you had indicated earlier, that things change. And I understand that interest rates go up, they fall. You're not in control of that. Was that considered 2 years ago as well?
That was a refunding, I think. We had savings on that one. So that one we had savings. That was a refunding / restructure. So we did get some savings, but we did restructure some of the bonds. This would be more of a straight refund. We got to call it refunding because that's what you do under the statutes. But it's not a monetary savings refunding. It's to achieve long-term debt service relief. This is more of a relief issue than a savings issue.
Thank you.
Alderman, any further questions for Mr. Thiebridge? Alderman Carlozzi.
Thank you, Your Honor. Yeah, I'm going to get to you too, sir. But first of all, I just want to make a statement that you were not here 2 years ago. That's absolutely correct. That was not my call. If it had been my call, you would have been here, sir. Thank you. So just want to put that on the record. I think my question is for Lori.
It's more than that. 4 years. It's 4 years ago.
4 years ago.
Yeah.
It was 4 years. Well, still, the bottom line is you were not here. It wasn't my call. You would have been here if it was my call. Lori, if you don't mind. Your Honor, through you, if I may, to Lori.
Certainly.
So on June 30th, if we do nothing tonight, on June 30th, we owe $28,315,000 on our debt, including principal and interest, correct?
Correct.
And since our budget that we approved last year ends on June 30th, was that money allocated in the budget and approved?
Absolutely was budgeted for.
Okay. So by relieving and throwing that number down to $21,600,000, there's a $6 million difference. Where is that money going to go? That savings? Where
I would
it-
suggest that savings go back into the tax stabilization fund, which this body created, excuse me, back in October to offset any potential tax increases.
Okay. So let me, if I may, if this $28 million was allocated and it is appropriated in the budget and it's there to be paid out, then why are we doing this tonight to the best of your knowledge?
Because this is not just for this 1 year, like the two gentlemen have been talking about. We're trying to level out those massive peaks that we're going to see in the next 4 years. So combining the new money piece, which is converting the bands to the bonds, and adding the $28 million in restructuring, not the refunding, but to restructure it, will allow us to push those larger principal payments out farther until we can either get legislation passed, the state can get its act together. You know, a lot of the problem really is it's very, very difficult for us to budget given what the state's going through. So this year, we're gonna have to pick an arbitrary number to cut state aid, you know, maybe 10%. How are we gonna make that up? That's where some of these savings are gonna come in.
Okay, thank you. Dick, yes, I know you want to answer some questions, don't you, sir? So I think we're all, so based on what Lori just mentioned, so let me go through the numbers again. In 2017, it's 28 million. Following year, it's 29 million, 29 million, 29. In 2021, we're at 32 million. By doing this, we're cutting our amount for this year to 21,600,000, then 23,900,000, then 27,900,000, then we're at 35, and then we're at 39. You've been talking about the interest rates. We saw the beginning in December of a little interest rate raise and a little hike here and a little hike there. Obviously, I don't expect you to know where we're going to be a year from now, and I don't know where we're going to be 2 years from now. But what I do know is that the city of New Britain seems to always be going back and restructuring its debt. Almost like having a bill due to MasterCard and let's get Visa to pay the MasterCard bill, and then when we have a balloon payment to make, let's get American Express to pay that one off. So we're keep on moving that money around, and we're gonna get another 45 million. But as I said, right now, based on our debt service, by the year 2035, we owe 300. We're gonna pay out 309 million, and we're gonna go to 384 million under the new plan. And yes, there's another $45 million of new issue, the bans that are gonna be thrown in here, and then another 30 million over and above that. So aren't we just kicking the can down the road?
Not really, because you're not, kicking the can down the road would mean you're somehow foregoing pain ever. And we're not. If you were going to be taking your debt and going to only retire 30% of the debt in the next 10 years, then I might agree with you.
Okay.
But we're talking about going from one extremely high level
83% to 74%.
to 74, which is still high. You know, 50, if you were at 50 to 60, we're not having this conversation. And I think the only thing about about the credit card is the city of New Britain, you're right. We've not only been doing a lot of restructurings, but I've been coming here for over 30 years, and the reason I've been coming here for 30 years is you keep borrowing money. So,
I don't know if that's good or bad, sir. I don't know.
and you have to keep borrowing money. You know, if 10 years ago or 20 years ago we didn't borrow all the money that we've been borrowing for schools and everything else, we wouldn't be having this conversation. So, and you really have to be applauded. That sounds like a knock on you, but it's really applauding you because you've been keeping up with your necessary capital expenditures. The city of New Britain is not rotting, you know, at its foundation. So you've got good school systems. Yes, some have to be replaced. You know, you have things that have to be done because you don't go out of business. You know, city of New Britain, unlike a homeowner can decide, I've paid as much bonds, as many mortgage payments as I want on this house. I've replaced the windows, the roof. I don't want to do it anymore. I'm going to let the kids worry about the house 10 or 15 years from now. The city of New Britain doesn't have that luxury because you guys can't pass it on to the kids because you've got to keep the house in order. You have to have sound municipal buildings, and you know, you just built a new police station. So you've got to keep restoring. You don't have the luxury of saying, let someone else take care of our capital needs. So the city has been spending money on necessary capital projects for, as I said, decades. Unfortunately, the way the statutes are, that's forced you into this atypical kind of scenario where we've got a lot of debt coming due in the next 5 years.
Well, you know, these are, you know, anytime bonding comes before us, I've always find it to be one of the most difficult votes. I understand the logic, I understand the reasoning why. From a debt perspective, I also understand that we need to do something to make sure that we continue to pay our bills, and we pay them on a timely basis. But it's just, the only thing that gets me is that I mean, we're going to be doing this again probably next year and the year later, and the interest rates are only going to be going up. And then we're going to be facing, whoever's on the council and whoever's in the mayor's office at that time is going to be facing a $35 million and a $39 million payment, looking them in the eyes. And when we look at our total budget of $241 million, of that, Your Honor, about 100 plus, 125, 130 of it is the Board of Education. That payment is a very, very large percentage of our overall budget. And if we're not in the capacity to borrow money at that point, there's going to be some very serious issues when we have a $39 million bill to pay on bonding.
I think the problem you've got here, and we're looking at the way the debt is, you didn't create the problems with the statutes. You didn't create, you've been here a while, so you did vote for a lot of these bond projects.
I did.
Some of the newcomers, they have no responsibility for that. So
I did.
You're
I
on
did.
the hook.
I did. And I did. So as I said, these have been very difficult because I understand the logic. I didn't vote for the pools. I didn't vote for other things either. Let's just go on the record on that one. I mean, I did not. And I also voted to rescind a number of those bonds. So let's just put it out there. And
thank heavens you did, because if you hadn't rescinded all those resolutions, we'd be even in a much more difficult situation.
Speaking of my votes in the past, this mayor in her first year, we had an issue where we couldn't pay expenses for the last month of June of 2014, if I'm correct, Your Honor. Mm-hmm. And I did push, and I did vote for the emergency borrowing of some money that we needed to get through. That money was repaid. It was a very controversial vote. I did vote for that. I did vote in 2014 to refinance our debt, because at the end of the day, there was a savings. It was very small, but yes, there was a savings on that plan. And I also voted in 2016 to do some restructuring when we're doing what we're doing tonight. We wanted to level the field for a couple of years, but we added debt in the back end okay? I felt that was what we absolutely had to do. I'm sort of tired at this point of continuing to vote for these things, because I'm starting to feel that I am, just pushing stuff down the road. Our finance chief just told us we have the 28 million, but then I'm also thinking in the back of my head, but we're also doing not only this year, but maybe some other issues. And if we don't do it now at this interest rate, we're going to be doing it at a higher interest rate a year from now. So you put me in a very difficult position, because my inclination is I want to vote no. I'm tired of restructuring and restructuring. I want us to start paying, and I want us to reduce expenses so we can continue to make payments.
And the issue is not to not pay. The issue
I want
is
to pay
simply-
without restructuring.
Yeah, is to pay it with a little less pain. You're
But
still
there's
gonna
going to
pay.
be, but respectfully, Your Honor, if I may, there's going to be pain a couple of years from now unless we redo this again,
Or we get relief in the statutes.
and then stretch it out.
Yeah, because when we did some of those refundings, we weren't able to go out longer. As you can see from that chart, you have a huge drop-off. If you didn't go from here to here, we'd be having a different conversation. If it was here to here, that's one thing, but you're going from up here down to here. So you're inflicting short-term pain for the next few years on the city, with the fact that there would be a lot less, rapid decline or payoff in the debt. So I think that's the case here. What we're trying to do is just shift that burden so that it isn't that difficult on the city now.
Let me ask you, I think my last question, Your Honor. So if we do this, our finance chief said that we have the 28 million in the budget right now to pay. If we do all this, and our obligation now is only going to be 21 million, could we still go ahead and pay the 28 million? Or can we now pay no more than the 21 million under the new restructuring?
No, you would only pay the 21 million.
Could we pay the 28 since we already have it in the budget to pay?
You could, but then you'd be paying more because we have new bonds coming on next year. That's 45 million in new money. So your debt service is going to go up a lot next year.
Even though instead of lower, so you're saying that even if we pay the 20, we restructured, we're only due to pay 21 million in June now instead of 28.
Right.
But we have the money allocated for the 28, so we just wrote the check for the 28. That's going to hurt us in the future?
No, you would take the money, you'd pay the 28, but then next year you're going to have, with the new money going on, without any restructuring, you're going to have
No.
even
I'm saying
higher debt.
I'm saying restructure,
Yeah.
but still go ahead and pay 28 million in June instead of 21 under the new. Still pay based on the fact that we have the money in the budget.
Save the money to pay for next year.
Yeah, that's what you'd have to apply for next year.
Next year, Your Honor, we're
23.
we're 8,400,000 less than what we would be obligated for without restructuring. So Your Honor, what I'm saying is.
But you still have rising budget costs that we're gonna have to meet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and you got the state, you got a lot of uncertainties with the state funding. I would differ a little, Lori, when she said putting it into your reserve fund. Yeah, building up those reserve funds is very, very prudent given what's going on with the state's financial picture, and also helps us with the rating. To be quite candid, one of the reasons why we went from non-investment grade, where we were a few years ago, to, in the A category now, is because you've been able to build up your rainy day fund, your reserves. So, given everything that can happen in this day and age with cuts during the year, having as much money that you can use for unforeseen events is a very prudent way to go.
We had an issue a number of years back. Somebody new came into the mayor's office and said that there were structural problems with our budget. That person was heavily criticized. We now have been hearing for the last 3 years that there are indeed structural issues with our budget. So I think, when we were told basically 6 years ago that there were structural issues with the budget, that individual was correct. Because even this mayor has said over and over again, we have issues with the budget. We have structural problems with the budget. You mentioned it tonight. We have structural problems with our budget. We rely so much on grants and funds from other sources other than our taxpayers. We get $122 million in taxpayer money, and we have, you know, we have a budget of 241 million. So all that other money is coming, so any of those grants that are cut off, any of those state aids that are cut off, we're in a heap load of trouble.
Well, I would beg to differ a little. It
Okay.
isn't that you're getting grant money and all is the problem.
State aid, payment, yeah,
But
all
the
that
problem
money.
is you're still financing on a very inelastic base, property tax. I have long contended that cities need additional revenue sources, like a portion of the sales tax or something like that, or toll road fees or something. But you've got a very narrow base that doesn't, you know, because your grand list is built up, it can't expand. You're not going to take the grand list of the city of New Britain and add 20, you know, grow it by 20%. There's no wand that you can wave that's going to cause that. The other problem you have is in the city, especially in the cities, so much of your grand list, you don't get the full value of it because payment in lieu of taxes. And we have the state of Connecticut promises to reimburse you for that full pilot payment, but they don't.
They never do.
Yeah, they never have. So you've got every city in this, especially the cities, but cities and towns, you've got an inelastic tax base, sole source of income. Yes, you get some grants from the thing, but you know the bulk of it is the property tax, and you've got that base is even narrower because you're not getting the full value from that base. If I don't know the numbers, but I'm sure that the mayor would, you know, be very happy if instead of receiving a portion of the pilot, if she got the full pilot, I don't think we're having these discussions.
No, we wouldn't be.
Would not all.
We would not be. I mean, I think, Your Honor, 50% of our properties are actually non-taxable.
About 48% of the property in town
48%.
is non-taxable,
So
more
you're
about
running a race.
97% developed.
Yeah. You're running a race with one hand tied behind you and two legs tied together. How fast are you going to run?
You still got one. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Your Honor.
Well, an interesting fact, and we should say this, and Lori, didn't we look up how much money we would get if all of our properties were assessed
No.
at full value?
Twice.
Yeah, I think the tax exempt value, the taxable value on the tax exempt parcels is over $1 billion.
Let's put that into perspective.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir.
Your Honor.
Alderman Salerno.
And it's more just a comment. I think the interesting piece of this is another tool in the toolbox of what we're trying to do. Why I'm supporting it, certainly, it's a structural perspective. We're restructuring because we're looking at increasing the grand list over time. We're looking at making some of the determinations, the savings that were made this year. It's not just, well, bonding issues are one piece of the municipal government. And I think that's just important for the general public to appreciate it, for us on the council to appreciate it, that this is one piece of the pie of how we move forward. I believe that restructuring is a part of stewardship, and that's what STEWARD, but it includes the mayor as well, that when we're stewardship of the community, it means we're paying attention. We're managing as best as we can the budgetary process, short-term and long-term. And so these are some of the ways we do that. So I just think I encourage people to understand it's not just one piece of it. This is just one piece of it. We're moving forward because we hope that other things are going to happen, whether it's legislation or statute changes, whether it's increase to the grand list. All those things are going to add to the possibilities. But we're managing it, and that's good for our bond rating. That's good for how people in the fiscal administrations look at things. They're saying they're really paying attention to their budgets. They're not kicking anything down the road. They're not over bonding, and those are really positive aspects. So I certainly encourage that we go ahead and be able to vote on this very shortly. Thank you.
Thanks. Alderman Rosado.
Thank you, Your Honor, and to Mr. Feverich.
Yeah, I'm an old man.
Hey, it's all good. Again, I want to refer back to page 4 and just have a question again on the municipal yield curve comparison.
I love you.
Yeah, well, I kind of want to educate too before I ask the question on why this is so important, because this right here is directly tied to bond investors. When bond investors are looking into investing in the bonds, this is what they look at, and that's why it's so important. Am I correct with that assessment, sir?
Right, because the longer you, the reason that it has that if we take the current one with that green line is
Right.
if you're only investing for 2 years, you're willing to accept a lower rate of interest.
Right.
If you're going to go out for 10 years or 15 years, you're going to want to be paid more money for going out longer. So, you know, it's risk reward kind of thing.
Right,
It's,
right.
You know,
Which ultimately my question is now, we were talking about yield curves, and under a normal yield curve, of course, it's basically showing that the long-term bond rate are higher levels than the short term. Now, this usually indicates that they have a strong confidence in the economy in the near term, and less confidence further on. So investors tend not to invest in long-term bonds because they are concerned about the future. So my question to you is, based on whatever's happening at the federal government level or at the state level, in your assessment, looking at everything that we have right now, how should bond investors think, and how should they feel about the future moving forward?
holy smokes.
I'm ready.
That's a loaded question. I'm
That's
going
a-
to throw that as a loaded question.
Mr. Treasury Secretary.
Well, I mean, because I think the importance of that is that, again, I mean, a lot of what you had stated previously was based on, I guess, interest rates, and a lot of what's happening at the federal level, but also, you've also made some comments as far as what it comes to the state level. So I guess the best way to answer that is that a strong economy in every facet improves everything.
Well, yes and no.
Except for our interest rates.
Yeah, except for
Because then we pay more in a
Yeah.
stronger economy on our debt. So we want a stronger economy, but we want lower debt.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, that's the trade-off. Is the stronger the economy gets, what I think you're going to be seeing in the future next couple of years is as the recovery continues to pick up, that's going to put more pressure on wages. Because people, for the last 5-6 years, one of the perception is about things being bad is because wages have been flat to negative. If there's more pressure because the economy is doing better and companies are doing better, there'll be more pressure to have wages increase. The more wages increase, the more people can pay for things. The more you can pay for things, the more the price is going to go up. Plus, we've been in a period of time where energy prices, gas prices, have been extremely low. You know, I love that. $2, $2.25, or $2.50. And at some point, here again, supply and demand, as the rest of the world economy recovers, because they've been lagging behind. As much as we feel the U.S. recovery's been slow, the rest of the world's been even slower. So as they get stronger, they're going to be wanting more oil. As they use more oil, our oil prices are going to go up. The more our oil prices go up, there's more pressure on wages to go up to take care of the higher cost of living. So you get into these inflationary spirals. Right. And I'm old enough, and so is Lou, that in the 70s, we had exactly that kind of scenario. In the 70s and early 80s, where the mayor wasn't born yet. I'll say that because I know that's what she's thinking.
Neither were a couple aldermen
Yeah.
on here either.
We had a case of we had high energy prices, high inflation, and so municipal CD rates were 26%. Tax-exempt borrowing rates, City of Bridgeport paid over 12%. Short-term interest rates, one-year bands, were 8%. Yeah, Dan's you're old too.
Thank you very much.
So I'm just saying, I'm not predicting that's what we're going to have, but when you get into these high energy costs, wage inflation type of scenarios, and you get inflation, interest rates then skyrocket. When I bought my house, I paid 15.5% interest, 2.5 points, and 25% down. So, you're not in that scenario now. Thank heavens you're not in that scenario now. But, I don't know what the future brings, but I can just deal with what we have today.
Well, thank you for all your information.
Thank you. Any further questions for Mr. Thiebridge, Mr. Chudwick, Ms. Granado? Anybody? Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderpersons Giantonio.
Yes.
Smedley.
Yes.
Carlozzi.
Wake up, Carlo. Oh, he's awake. Yes.
Collins.
Yes.
Davis.
Yes.
Hargraves.
Yes.
Naples.
Yes.
Pabon.
Yes.
Polkowski.
Yes.
Rosado.
Yes.
Salvio.
Yes.
Sanchez.
Yes.
Sanders.
Yes.
Salerno.
Yes.
14-0, Your Honor.
Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Motion to adjourn, Your Honor.
Made by Alderman Giantonio, seconded
Second.
by Alderman Rosado. All those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. The special meeting of the Common Council is adjourned at 7:48 p.m. Please stay tuned for public participation for the regular meeting of the Common Council, which will start right after that's complete.
Good evening again. Again, we're here January 11, 2017, and our first council meeting for the year. And this is our public participation. I would like to keep in mind for everyone who has signed, we have a number of people who have signed, that we do have a 3-minute limit at this point. We encourage you to stay very close to that. I don't want to gavel anybody out, but I just want to just keep it along. And if we haven't signed, if there's anyone else who might want to speak, please go ahead and do so. I apologize ahead of time if I don't get everyone's pronunciations properly. Ghislaine Pierre Bolduc.
Right here. My turn to speak?
Yes, and also please, for your edification, anyone else, please state your name and your address, okay?
I prefer not to state my address. For safety
We have to have the address for the record.
I wrote it on the paper.
Okay. I can just say this, the street, would that be sufficient at this point?
No. Safety
All right.
reasons.
About the town.
That's fine. Go ahead.
Before I start this open forum, what I was told when I called the mayor's office today was that the open forum was from 7 to 7:30. So I was here early so I could write, because I had rough drafts written. And I'm angry. I know things happen that I'm aware of. I'm angry because I feel like I was being played tonight. Because every time I try to do something to help the city, I am disrespected. Okay. Before, okay, let me get to the paper. I've been on disability since 1990. I am protected by the ADA. My name is, in French, Guylaine Pierrette Bolduc. In English, Ghislaine Pierrette Bolduc. That's my native language, in case anyone is wondering. French is my native language and my first language. I'm extremely angry on how society has demoralized my worth, character, value, and truth. I am not a menace to others. In my opinion, a person's socio-economic background, social status, or morals does not make them a person of worth. My experience working and volunteering in the political process are lobbying at the legislative building for survivors of homicide, passing a bill, keep the promise, the blue ribbon, and I started the Ticket to Work program on disability. I spoke, it was on Russell Street in New Britain with Nancy Johnson. Okay, I'm a little over the place because I didn't have time to really rewrite this and restructure it, but I think you understand my point. So let me get back to where I was. I believe I have, no, I know I have a lot of work experience, life experience, volunteer experience, and medical experience. Listed above were just a minimum of my experience in the political system. Now, if any of you would like to ask me a question, I am here and I would gladly answer them if I am willing to answer them and if they're appropriate for me to answer.
Ms. Bolduc, I apologize for the time frame, and I understand you want to express your concerns, but we do have a 3-minute limit, and that's
I'm done.
passed. Okay, that's fine. We don't usually respond to questions or answers. You're certainly welcome to stay afterwards if you would like to speak to anyone, but I'll be glad to talk with you myself. But right now, we don't answer or respond or ask questions of any of the people who speak.
That's fine. I respect that. Can you tell me, though, I have a question. Is that allowed?
We won't, no, we don't
Okay.
answer questions now.
Not a problem.
I'll be glad to answer something later on if you like. Thank you. Lorraine Madison?
Hello, I'm Lorraine Madison, 57 Hillcrest Road, Niantic, Connecticut. I've been here to speak in front of the board before. I'm here to talk about the property on 866 West Main Street. My family has owned and paid taxes on the property at 866 West Main Street for over 40 years. 3 years ago, my husband and I started much-needed renovation on this property. Just like you're trying to beautify the city, we worked very hard to do the same to our building. I believe we now have one of the nicest looking buildings on West Main Street. Therefore, we feel we should be granted an opportunity to put in a used car and/or repair shop in this site. This would be a very good use of this building. In addition, with the building filled and not empty, it would also help out the city by helping to make this section of town look more prosperous while also bringing in business to the city. Thank you. Quick tonight.
Thank you. Stuart Madison?
Stuart Madison, 57 Hillcrest Road, Niantic, Connecticut. Again, I'm here to talk also about 866. Last time we were here, we were told we did everything right. We had all our forms, had all our dates right. Couldn't understand why we were denied. We stand here tonight and listen to budget problems. This would have brought in at least some money to the town. Other people who try to have businesses, if they see the problems we're having, they might decide to go elsewhere. Then you would lose more money. This building was put up for automotive. It's been used for that. It's been used for boats. I don't see why it wouldn't be appropriate to have it done this time also. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I believe it's Peter Diadio.
Hello, my name is Peter Diadio. My company's Commercial Services Realty. We represent 866 West Main Street. My home address is 89 Sandy Drive. And I appreciate the opportunity to come in front of this council to speak in favor of the approval for 866 West Main Street. We've listened to the discussion of budgets and looking to generate additional income for the town. And certainly this property with a tenant paying additional taxes would help that situation. And we, as the owners indicated, there's done a lot of work to the property, and we hope to do more to bring it back to its viable state. And we hope this board, at the right time, allows us to do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I believe it's Peter Alter, correct?
Peter Alter, 701 Hebron Avenue, Glastonbury. I'm an attorney. I represent the owners of 866 West Main Street. a matter that you'll take up later on in your agenda. There are several matters that were brought up in the subcommittee proceeding earlier this year, and we've been able to develop some additional information which we would like the opportunity to present to the Common Council at the appropriate time this evening. And we have present tonight our project site planning engineers and traffic consultant in order to provide information to the Common Council. So we would ask for that opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. John McNamara.
Thank you, Majority Leader Salerno. Happy New Year, members of the council. John McNamara, 56 Brighton Street. I just want to briefly comment on two matters. One's on the agenda and one isn't. The one that's not is I'd like to ask the Common Council to consider rescinding your prior authorization of the sale of Patton Brook Well in light of new developments that have, in light of a drought conditions that has required the city to purchase water from the Metropolitan District Commission. That is a particularly painful point given the misinformation, misleading statements given to you. I believe the council was misinformed by the administration, city water department, and in light of these developments, I think I'd ask you to revisit that issue and consider rescinding the sale of Patton Brook Well. Your action has precipitated, or will, legislation to require that municipalities or water authorities need to obtain a value, an independent appraisal of the value of watershed, which you did not have. You did not have an independent appraisal. It was a number pulled out of a hat. So I'd ask you respectfully, in light of the conditions and the money going now to the MDC, that there was indications the city's watershed was so plentiful we didn't need that well. Apparently so, we may do so now. And second, regrettably, I want to comment on petition 33544, the 866 Main Street permission approval for a location of a motor vehicle business. I was disturbed to read that the earlier actions by the city have resulted in court action that involved a potential conflict of interest by the alderman from Ward 1, Mr. Salvio. I think that was regrettable and could have been avoided. We all know that Mr. Salvio has been involved in other court action that resulted in civil action against the city for harassing a city employee. This is unbecoming public official. I think all of you are familiar with the city charter, which states censure or other actions against public officials who are not acting in the best interest and in fact not acting in an ethical manner. So I would urge, particularly tonight, if you're going to vote on this matter, I think that Alderman needs to recuse himself from that vote. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. David Santiago?
Good evening, and thank you for this opportunity. I would like to make a petition.
Please state your name and address.
My name is Reverend David Santiago. I am pastor of Triumphant Church, formerly known as Embassy Church.
And your address?
My address is 893 Corbin Avenue. The church's address is 250 Arch Street. I am here to make a petition to the Common Council on behalf of Triumphant Church regarding the sale of 266 Arch Street. Before this resolution is considered, I'm petitioning that a conversation take place between the city and Triumphant Church We have some very serious issues that may need resolving, perhaps through the legal system. And so before this goes any further, we would petition that conversation take place. Now, on behalf of Triumphant Church, I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to be able to speak?
Hi, good evening. My name is John Zippadelli, 1474 Stanley Street. I'd like to thank you for giving me this opportunity tonight. I want to try to stay as positive as I can. I think all you guys are doing a wonderful job up here. You guys had some great questions when we were sitting in for the special session. And I really have no problems ever when I come to City Hall or deal with anybody from the city. I think it's been an overall positive experience. Anytime I have a police officer or fire department at any of my buildings, if I come in to request something out of the clerk's office, go to the mayor's office, et cetera, et cetera. My one issue, I've had some problems in the building department, and let me preface this by saying I think Director Lupo is a wonderful person. I've never had an issue with him. I wish some of his underlings would follow his lead. I've never had an issue with most of the inspectors. I've dealt with the health food inspectors. So I think overall my experience is very positive when I come to City Hall. However, on November 18th, I came to City Hall and I had to drop off a check and pick up an application. And the woman who was dealing with us at the desk, she shot an attitude at me. To her defense, you know, I have an attitude too, so I pushed it, I threw it right back. And then through our discourse, she did not want to help me, which that's fine, that's all well and good. I did, my partner was with me and he actually taped the conversation. Throughout that discourse, I didn't threaten. I did say one cuss word. And I left the office, went down to the mayor's office, and got the document that I came in there for. But unbeknownst to me, I had left and my partner had taken over for me. And he is probably the nicest, gentlest, soft-spoken, altruistic human being I've ever met. And he said, can I please have the food truck application? And she denied it to him. So I left. Like I said, I went to the mayor's office. I mean, I'm thinking he's going to be able to procure that application from the woman at the desk. Not only did she not give it to him, she escorted him out of the building department before 3:45 p.m. And you could hear in the recording the audible closing of the door. And I heard the bell ring, so thank you for your time. I had one more point. Do I get five? No?
I'd rather have you not, and
Okay.
I'm sure it'll go extended longer. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I take the hit for that, but anyone else who would like to speak? Come forward. Thank you.
My name is Joel Gigenti, Martin Luther King Drive. We have this city property, city grinding. You're still saying no to the city grinding? Let me ask you something. People are watching you right now. And as they watch you, they see what the city politicians do, in accordance with the law and everything. Now we're arguing about taking a 12 to 13-foot car out of that driveway. We used to move 40-foot boats out of that driveway. I know city grinding. I lived on Gary Drive. I was down there with Peter. I was down there with Chico. We were all there. We all hung around there. We all did Christmas trees down there. They helped us do everything down there. A 12-foot car you're worried about, but a 40-foot boat you guys didn't care for years. For years they had property of boats over there. But you know, these people that are going to come in here and open up a store, they're going to be afraid to come down because you're going to turn them down. Because that was a repair shop before. Is there old-timers clause in there somewhere? That when it was something, it goes back to the same thing again? Now, when you built Costco over there, you thought it was going to be high. You built a new road. You put up lights and stuff like that. But that's a new customer. But you got someone that's been here 60, 70 years. I remember, I was there. And we turned them down. They pay their taxes. They helped the city of New Britain out. When the Prowls next door was Burt Trucking, I don't know if you people remember what used to be on that street, but I remember a lot. And I'll tell you what, traffic did not go anymore. Traffic is the same as always, and it was me. There's two roads, West Main and Black Rock Avenue. And seeing that a lot of people are not working. But there should be some kind of a clause of that, what it was before, and it's going to be the same thing. It was licensed, I guess, a license for boats and stuff like that to be put on the property. So I think we should open it up and let them, because they're not going to be moving, you know, tractor trailers in and out of there. That's not big enough to put one in there. But the people looking and they says, look at this, 60 years they've been on that property. 60 years moving boats, 30, 40-foot boats out of that property. And you're worried about a 12-foot, 14-foot car. So I think we should let them do it, everything you have to do to let them have it is we should let it go and start getting more tax money in here. Because people are going to be afraid, and they're going to say one thing. If they can do that to a person that's been paying taxes for 60 years, what are they going to do to me as a new business? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Malinowski.
Good evening, Alderman. Ken Malinowski, 1928 Stanley Street, New Britain. It's with great sadness that I inform the council of the passing of Commissioner Richard Rose. Commissioner Rose was a wonderful man and a tireless servant to the citizens of the city of New Britain. While I do not know his entire history of service, I do know that Mr. Rose served several mayors going back at least to Mayor Manafort, I believe, holding positions on numerous boards and commissions, everything from the Water Board to CCND. While almost never missing a meeting, Mr. Rose was always a voice of reason, and he was always striving to do what was best for the city of New Britain. I first met Mr. Rose when Mayor DeFranco appointed him to the Broad Street Task Force. That was going to morph into the Broad Street Collaborative, and then it morphed into the Broad Street Businessmen's Association, and finally into the Broad Street NRZ. Mr. Rose was a fierce advocate for Broad Street as he understood its potential, and he fought to set the stage for the revitalization into what is now known Little Poland. Most recently, he's been serving on the Commission on Community and Neighborhood Development. Last Friday, I received a call from his wife, Fran, informing me that as he lay in hospice at New Britain General Hospital, he was concerned that there was a commission meeting coming up this Thursday and that he wasn't going to be able to attend. And after some discussion, he insisted that Frank call me, and due to his condition, he needed to resign from the commission he loved. And those were his words when he described the commission, that he loved the commission. On Sunday, January 8th, the city of New Britain lost a dedicated servant, and a very good friend. And I just wanted to say Godspeed to my friend, and may he rest in peace.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak in public participation? Anyone else in the audience would like to speak in public participation? Anyone further would like to speak in public participation? Seeing none, then this public participation session is closed. We'll move to the general common council meeting. Thank you very much. Just for the record, we began at 7:58 p.m. and it is now 8:21 p.m. for public participation. Oh, but
Response to-
we'll get to you, yeah. Alderman Carlozzi.
Thank you. I just wanted to respond very quickly to Pastor Santiago, I believe, from Triumphant Church. Tonight, all we will be doing with that matter is referring it to committee, so we will be not taking any action on that. If the pastor wishes to talk to our council administrator, Jessica Geritana, she'll be able to give you the committee date, and at that time, at the committee meeting, it would be appropriate to come and speak before the committee at that time under public participation, and then possibly the committee members may have questions for the pastor, and so that he can talk about his concerns. Thank you, Alderman Salerno.
No problem, Alderman. Any other Alderman? Alderman Rosado.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In reference also to Pastor Santiago, like Alderman Carlozzi mentioned that this is going to be voted and referred back to a committee. But I will say for those that are neighborhood housing who's interested in investing in that property, they have this past week connected with the Art Street NRZ, met with the Latino Coalition, and made a tremendous presentation on that property. So they've been willing to be open to communicate with anyone that might have any concerns. So hopefully you guys can come together and be able to discuss that before it goes further to the subcommittee. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Rosado. Any other members of the council like to have comment? Seeing none, we'll be moving to our regular meeting shortly. Thank you very much.
I would like to call to order this regular meeting of the New Britain Common Council, January 11th, 2017. The time is 8:28 p.m. Mr. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Alderpersons Giantonio.
Present.
Smedley.
Present.
Carlozzi.
Here.
Black. Collins.
Present.
Davis.
Here.
Hargraves.
Here.
Naples.
Here.
Babone.
Here.
Polkowski.
Present.
Rosado.
Here.
Salvio.
Here.
Sanchez.
Here.
Sanders.
Here.
Salerno.
Here.
14 present, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. Alderman Carlos?
Your Honor, if the record could note that Alderwoman Black had an illness in the family, and so she could not be here tonight.
We are sorry to hear that. Thank you. Can we all please rise for the invocation, which will be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance?
Let us pray. O God, our Heavenly Father, we thank you for the new year and all the potential it promises. You make all things new and give us hope. You cause our spirits to be born again. In the depths of a cold, blistery New England winter, instill a mighty flame, so we will appreciate the wonders of your gift of life and give us the strength to follow through on all of our 2017 New Year's resolutions. We ask this in thy name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. And the Pledge of Allegiance led by the one and only Commissioner Knoke Ward. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before everyone takes a seat this evening, if you'll indulge me for just one moment, I would like to honor a moment of silence this evening. As we heard during public participation, we did lose not only Commissioner Richard Rose, whom I had the pleasure of serving with on the Commission for Community and Neighborhood Development, who was an incredible force in this community and a great advocate for CCND, but also Mr. Tom Schenk, who is the chairperson of our Board of Assessment Appeals, who passed away last week as well. So please, a moment of silence for the both of them. Thank you. We send our prayers to their families and thank them for their unwavering service and dedication to the city of New Britain. Alderman Giantonio.
Your Honor, motion to approve the minutes of the special meeting and the regular meeting of October 26, 2016.
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Salerno. Any questions or comments on the minutes? All those in favor of approval signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Amendments to the agenda, Alderman Giantonio.
Thank you, Your Honor. We have the following amendments. Proposed addition I, substitute 4, a substitute 7, and a substitute 10. So I make a motion to add item I1 and add substitutes 4, 7, and 10.
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Salerno. Any questions or comments? Everybody have everything that they need? Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Who was the second?
Salerno.
Salerno, thank you. Alderpersons Giantonio?
Yes.
Smedley?
Yes.
Carlozzi?
Yes.
Collins?
Yes.
Davis?
Yes.
Hargraves?
Yes.
Naples?
Yes.
Pabon?
Yes.
Polkowski?
Yes.
Rosado?
Yes.
Salvio?
Yes.
Sanchez?
Yes.
Sanders?
Yes.
Salerno?
Yes.
14-0, Your Honor.
Motion carries. Thank you. Mr. Clerk, for the petitions to the
Yes,
council.
we have two this evening. First one is from Alderman Polkowski. Please add a stop sign at the end of Nachilli Drive as it intersects with Marigold Drive. There are currently no stop signs at this three-way intersection, and area residents have expressed concerns after observing a number of near misses.
Okay, we'll send that to Police Commission and to Public Works as well.
Okay, the next one's from Alderman Collins. Please conduct a traffic study at the intersection of South Street and Stanley Street. There have been numerous complaints of near accidents due to the traffic patterns and signage. Please inspect the current signage to ensure it is visible to all motorists.
Thank you. We'll send that to the same two as well, Police Commission and to Public Works.
That's it, Your Honor.
Thank you. On to the consent agenda, Alderman Giantonio.
Thank you, Your Honor. The items I am aware of that have been asked off of consent are item H and item I1. Therefore, I make a motion to accept a consent agenda consisting of items A, B, C, D, E, F, G, I, J, and K.
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Smedley. Any questions or comments? Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderpersons Giantonio.
Yes.
Smedley.
Yes.
Carlozzi.
Yes.
Black. I'm sorry, Collins.
Yes.
Davis.
Yes.
Hargraves.
Yes.
Naples.
Yes.
Pabon. Yes. Polkowski.
Yes.
Rosado.
Yes.
Salvio.
Yes.
Sanchez.
Yes.
Sanders.
Yes.
Salerno.
Yes.
14-0, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. Motion carries. Alderman Giantonio.
Your Honor, I make a motion to accept and adopt report H.
Second.
The motion is just to accept.
Accept the report H, sorry.
Seconded by Alderman Collins.
Ms.
Alderman
Mayor,
Polkowski?
yes. I need to recuse myself from this, this vote because I will be directly working on Hart Street as project administrator for Public Works.
Okay, goodbye.
Thank you.
Are there any questions on the report? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Welcome back, Alderman Polkowski. I believe Alderman Carlozzi requested the next item to be up.
Thank you, Your Honor. Excuse me. I make a motion that we accept item I-1.
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Sanders.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, I know this is a little unprecedented, but I would just like to show you something to see if it's actually part of the report, because it says draft, so I don't know if it's official or not. If you,
Okay.
Can you look at it just for a second, or who would like me to?
You're talking about the management letter, correct?
No, it's different, because the management letter is in the report itself. This is something extra. You mind just taking a quick look at it?
Yeah.
Okay, because I don't want to speak about it if it's not actually part of the report.
This is.
Okay, thank you.
It's the management letter that goes in the first page of the report.
Thank you, Your Honor. It just looked a little different, so that's why I didn't want to speak about something. So
It's the management letter that goes with in the front page of the report. It goes along with the audit.
So every year, thank you, Your
you're
Honor.
welcome.
So every year we've had, well, I shouldn't say every year, because I think there were some years we did not have Blum Shapiro. But every year, for the most part, Blum Shapiro has been auditing our financials and doing an audit of all the city records. And traditionally, the report is simply given to us. And this year, it's in the form of an actual report that the council has to accept. This is a report. You don't really vote no to a report because you're accepting it. There's no action really required other than to accept it. So for that, I just want to put it out there. You know, I mentioned earlier tonight about our city budget, and unless I'm mistaken, I just wanted to let some people know about the amount of operating grants and contributions and capital grants and contributions that we get. Somewhere in the neighborhood of $175 million. Okay? So last year, for 2016, actually in 2015, the total of primary government expenses, revenues were 316 million in 2015 and 347 million, but of that number, 170 million is coming from outside sources. So when we look at, property taxes was 127 million. Correct, Your Honor? So I wanted people to know when we're talking about possibly losing a funding source here or possibly losing a funding source there, these are big monies. When the state gets to the point where they are now, where they will be reducing monies, this is very important to the city of New Britain. So I think when we talked about those structural issues that we have with the budget, this really speaks loud and clear how much we are dependent on these outside monies from coming in. Your Honor, I also wanted to just speak about, so by the way, I did read the 118 pages. Thank you very much. We got it on a Monday afternoon, and we're voting on it tonight. I think the report was completed on December 30th, if I'm not mistaken. So this is the first opportunity we have to vote on it.
Not issued,
Well, okay. So anyway, we got it Monday, and we're here voting on it. I actually went through 118 pages of it. I don't want to be a hero, but I actually did do that. I'm not going to bore you all with things that I highlighted. I think the big discussion we had tonight was on our bonding. But I did want to speak to a couple of things, Your Honor, if I may. And I guess one of the things that they are strongly recommending, that there are some internal control procedures and some fraud risk assessment. And they basically mention here that we do not currently have a formal fraud risk assessment, and recommending to the city that we do that. And I am requesting, Your Honor, that we do go forward with that, and also a whistleblower policy. There is currently no formal whistleblower policy or tip line to report fraud in the city. Your Honor, I would ask that we would take the steps needed to put those two procedures in place. There were some things here about our property taxes and collections and when items are posted, and sometimes there's a delay, I guess, especially during the busy seasons. We may not have enough employees. I know in the past, during those times, we brought in some per diem employees to help out with that process. I think because of the budget, we really haven't done that in the last couple of years. So that's mentioned in this management report. And so I think those are some things that, as we continue to work on our finances and getting our financial house in order and ways that we can improve, I would ask that we would really look to implement some of those recommendations. Again, our budget is high and it continues to grow. And the amount of our grand list, we're always trying to grow it and grow it and grow it. But as we talked about earlier during our bonding, 48% of the properties that we have in the city of New Britain are non-taxable because they're nonprofits, and so, or they're churches, or they're state buildings, or they're city buildings, and they're not taxed. The schools are obviously not taxed. That's a lot. We would not be in the position we're in by any stretch of imagination if that percentage was much lower. So I think one of the things we need to take by that is to continually watch out and make sure that we don't lose more and more properties that are going to be tax exempt, or not taxed by the cities, or encourage the creation of more properties that come off our tax rolls. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you very much, sir.
Your Honor.
Alderman Siller.
Yes, just a point of information. Alderman Carlozzi mentioned the whistleblowers point here in the city, which I think is certainly appropriate, but it's just a point of information that the state of Connecticut, through the Connecticut Commission on Human Rights and Opportunities, has a whistleblower division, if you will, that permits anyone to contact them if that were to be the case. And it usually would end up in a state statutory agency such as that, but just as a point of information, so people are aware that there is a process for that that's fairly clear on their webpage. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the point of information. Any further questions or comments about the audit? All those in favor of accepting the report signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. On to resolution number 1. Alderman Siller now.
Yes, Your Honor, through you. I would like to make a motion to accept and adopt this resolution number 1.
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Salvio.
Yes. To the council, I'm enthusiastic about presenting this, and I certainly encourage a positive vote on this. This is Resolution 33716, which is basically a proposed lease agreement between the BAP 9 Tavern LLC and the City of New Britain in conjunction with the Park and Recreation Department to establish a restaurant business within the Stanley Golf Course. It's exciting because it really is going to present an increased entertainment value and a destination place for the golf course and for the City of New Britain. There are a lot of items certainly within the lease agreement. Mr. Eric Barbieri is available if anybody has any questions, or you can refer the Corporation Counsel of any legal issues involved, and I urge adoption.
Alderman Giantonio.
Thank you, Your Honor. I rise in support of this. And, before I do, I'd like to thank Leo Kamoshi and Joni and Ashley and everyone's favorite bartender, Matt Malinowski, for the great job that they've done up at the Windstone for years. With that said, I'm really looking forward to entering into an agreement with the Back Nine. If you visited Southington Country Club, you can see a great job that they do running a restaurant. And just listening to them when we were in committee with all the planned upgrades and all the ideas they have for that space, I think this is an absolute slam dunk, and I think we're lucky to have them running that restaurant, and I think they'll find that they're lucky to have us and Stanley Golf Course, and I think this is a great match for years to come, and I urge support.
Thank you very much, Alderman Smedley.
Thank you, Your Honor. I also do rise in support of this resolution and the business. I just wanted to also point out that the Calvanese family is here in the audience if anyone does have any questions for them, and their representation is also here, and we do welcome you to the city. Thank you.
Alderman Carlozzi.
Thank you, Your Honor. I was not here the night of the meeting, but I did watch it. Thanks to the technology that we have, I was able to watch the entire hearing. And I also want to welcome the Calvanese family into the City of New Britain. Anyone who doesn't know the name, AquaTurf. These are the folks that operated AquaTurf since I know at least since 1981, because that's when my brother got married there. But I'm sure it goes back even a few years before that. They now have Southington Golf Course. And a number of other facilities as well. They operate a class facility, and I was truly impressed when I heard them speak and say they have a brand, that they're very proud of their brand. Anyone who's gone to any of their facilities know how very proud they are of their brand, and they certainly stand for something. And so it's wonderful to see them coming in. Again, as Alderman Giantonio mentioned, we're very thankful that the Kamoshis and he mentioned our favorite bartender, Matt Malinowski, who was there. What a great job they've done. But this is definitely going to be taking the restaurant and the facility to another level. They're looking to put in $100,000 of their own money into the repairs that are needed. They're going to be putting in a wood fire brick oven, which is about, $30,000. They have to reinforce the floor because it's so heavy. The one thing that I think is going to be the city's responsibility, and I heard it mentioned by a wonderful member of our community, is the grade from the driveway to get up to the facility. I don't think we can expect the Calvanese family to do that, because I believe that's ours. We own that particular piece. So I'm hopeful that there is something that can be done to just strengthen that, to just make that more level going out more. Maybe expand it a little bit so they can maybe get golf carts from the bottom up to the top. Because we do have seniors who I've heard in the past say they can't go to a function there if that's where it's booked. So I'm hopeful that we would be able to expand on that. The family is looking to get rid of the deck and put in a beautiful patio, a stone patio. You can't make a wood stone patio. And so I'm very happy to see this, and I thank them for coming to the city. I think they will be very happy that they made that decision as well, as I know the city will be with them. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you very much, Alderman. And Alderman Sanders.
Very quickly, thank you, Your Honor. I'm going to rise in support of this as well. And I just want to point out that I mentioned this at the committee level, that I think a company of this stature taking an interest in New Britain shows that New Britain is on the right track. They have a great reputation, and to express their interest in New Britain, I said at the meeting I was quite humbled by that, and I'd like to reiterate that tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other aldermen? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Welcome to New Britain. Resolution number 2, Alderman Polkowski.
Thank you, Your Honor. May I I'd like to make a motion to accept and adopt resolution number 2.
Seconded by Alderman Collins. For discussion, Alderman Salvio.
Not for discussion. Due to a possible familial conflict of interest, I have to recuse myself from this item.
Ciao.
Your Honor, this resolution pertains to CJ Auto Mall. Their location is at 866 West Main Street. I know that there are a few members of the landlords here. I believe Mr. Delfino was also in the crowd. I don't know if he is still here, but they are here obviously to field any questions. And thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other discussion? Alderman Sanders.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm going to be supporting this tonight, and I know that there were several questions and concerns brought up at the committee level. And I know from some conversations from speaking with Mr. Peter DiDario that they're prepared to answer those. So I'm hoping that maybe they could just come up and address the traffic concerns and some of the other issues that were brought up at committee level. They came prepared. So if you want to do that now, I have a couple questions myself.
Okay, just please make sure they're direct questions that they're answering.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Again, my name is Peter Alter. I'm a lawyer, practice law in Glastonbury, representing City Grinding 2, the owners and landlords of the property. Jim Dutton of Dutton Associates has done the site plan and design, and Scott Hesketh of Hesketh Associates is our traffic consultant. There were several matters raised, and we're prepared to address those.
I think one of the big concerns was traffic. So if we could address the traffic issue and what you may have come up with that, I'd appreciate that.
Scott?
For the record, Scott Hesketh, I'm a licensed engineer in the state of Connecticut, firm of F.A. Hesketh and Associates. Our office is at 6 Creamery Brook in East Granby, Connecticut. I prepared a memo dated January 6, 2017, which I hope is part of the record. The project's located on West Main Street. West Main Street, according to the Department of Transportation, carries an average daily traffic volume of about 10,700 vehicles, according to their 2012 counts. Morning peak hour, about 575 vehicles, and an afternoon peak hour of about 914 vehicles. The proposed automobile use, which is about 2,450 square feet, 4-bay service area, would generate fewer than 10 peak hour trips during peak hours. And the peak hour generation would be similar to a retail facility, about the same size, and much less than a restaurant use of the same size in the same location. So the trip generation was so light, we didn't bother doing any capacity analysis calculations because there shouldn't be any impact on the local network. If the Commission has any specific questions, I'll try to address
I just wanted an explanation on the impact of traffic for the area to, kind of explain the concerns at the committee level. I don't know if there's any other questions on traffic. I know there was another question on the landscape and site improvements regarding the particular plants and things that were going to be put in there that was actually designed by a landscape architect. I think there was, I don't know if you were prepared to answer that or not.
Before we do that, I would like to submit the traffic report that Mr. Hesketh prepared.
To the clerk. You can hand that to the clerk and he'll pass it out. Thank you.
In terms of the site plan, I'm going to hand it over to Jim Dutton, who designed the site plan, and if there's any overlap, I'll be happy to jump back up here.
Thank you. I think the specific questions were in the landscape design and how it would affect the sight lines pulling on and in and out of the property.
For the record, my name's Jim Dutton. My office is at 67 Eastern Boulevard in Glastonbury, Connecticut, and I'm a principal of Dutton Associates. The landscaping was designed in a manner that will not impact the sight line exiting or entering the site. Right along West Main Street, there are some low plantings. Those plantings need to be durable and rugged due to the snow and salt removal during the winter. So they're like a juniper, and they're very low, and they can tolerate the impact from the salt. We also propose some taller trees that the lower branches are above the level of the sight line issue, so there is no impact to the sight line from the landscaping. Plus, they're set back. The shade trees in the parking lot are set back from the road.
Great, thank you. I don't have any other questions regarding the project, but I do have other comments.
Well, just in terms of the site distance, a representative from our firm did go out to the field. We measured an available site distance of 425 feet looking to the left, and the site distances looking to the right are in excess of 500 feet. The roadway is posted at 35 miles per hour, and the DOT would require a site distance of 390 feet. So the available site distances are in excess of what the Department of Transportation would recommend for a posted speed limit of 35 miles per hour.
Great, thank you.
Does any alderman have any questions? Alderman Polkowski?
I believe I could maybe direct this through your honor to Mr. Dutton regarding the site plan. I see you have shrubbery on the frontage of the property there. I know that West Main Street is a state road, obviously maintained and also plowed by the state. I've noticed previously, not specific to this location, but specific to the dealership across the street from the storage area, the old Shaw's building, and the plows come through with such force with that snow that basically cover the entire fronts of all the cars that are there. How is that landscaping going to survive that, and are you worried about any of the cars being damaged because of snow removal operations?
The landscaping plants that were selected for that specific purpose. There's always a chance an overzealous plow driver could drive a little bit too fast and perhaps damage them, but the landscape architects selected that species of plants. I don't recall exactly what they are, but if you need to know, I could look. There's also the possibility that snowplow vehicles could, if they're driving fast enough, throw some snow onto the vehicles. If it was me, I would move the vehicles. The area in front was slated for display vehicles. The first time any vehicle was damaged by any kind of snow being thrown, I would move the vehicles before the storm. I mean, that's a condition we just have to live with. We did, the plan does call for a landscaped island in front. Right now, the entire frontage of that site is one giant curb cut. We're going to limit the access to the site by closing off a portion of it, put curb, so it'll be less likely that the plows will be so close to the vehicles. There'll be a curbing set there, so that'll keep some separation distance away from these vehicles.
One other question that I have, maybe not for Mr. Dutton, but maybe for your legal representation. I know that it's been numerous months since this first came to subcommittee before we acted on it. Is the plan still intact? Is Mr. Delfino still going to try to get into this property? I know that Mr. Delfino also talked about selling high-end cars out of this location. Has the plan changed? Has it been revised at all? Are we still moving forward pretty much with the original plan back months ago?
The original site plan and plan for the operation of the site has not changed. We did, in the process of securing approvals, go to the Zoning Board of Appeals for some relief that was required, and due to the passage of time, we went back to the ZBA and secured an extension of those, the relief that we got, a variance and a special exception, through May, so that we would be protected through the end of this process, which we hope obviously will be successful.
And the plan still moving forward is to have Mr. Delfino occupy the space and sell exclusively high-end cars, limiting his inventory. I know he mentioned he has an online sales business where our concern as the city is the number of cars. Whenever you go through used car dealerships, it's the amount of cars that are always just jam-packed into these lots with, you know, lack of accessibility and lack of egress, you know, to per se from each site. So I
This
just want to
was-
make sure Mr. Delfino is still on board with the original plan and everything.
In fact, Lorraine Madison, whose family is the owner of this property, was particularly concerned about that and limited the number of available parking spaces on the site so that there can't be an excess of vehicles on the site. In keeping with that kind of planning, she wanted to ensure, as the landlord, and as was indicated, her family has owned this property for decades, that it was not abused by the tenant. So we've set it up to directly ensure that that kind of use, a limited kind of use, is what will occur on the site. They spent a great deal of time and effort with Mr. Dutton to accomplish that and to not maximize every inch on the site for car parks. In fact, they've limited it.
And now I know, I'm sorry for continuing on, but the resolution does state CJ Auto Mall. Now, that LLC, that is represented by Ms. Madison or Mr. Delfino?
That is Mr. Delfino's company.
Okay, so
Yes.
still original plan for Mr. Delfino
We
to
have
come in?
not varied from that. We continue to be in contact with both him and his counsel, Mr. Sullivan, in terms of moving ahead.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Alderman Naples?
Yes, through you, whoever can answer it. I'm just kind of counting up the parking spaces that I see. It's some in the low 20s.
Mr. Dutton indicates 25 spaces.
Okay, I'm disappointed that Mr. Delfino left. I saw him sitting here. I was looking forward to asking him a couple of questions directly. Because when he came before, he was talking about his operation that he had in Berlin, on the Berlin Turnpike. He was going to change from that to go to sell expensive cars. I don't know what the market is for Lamborghinis in central Connecticut. But
I don't know.
what we've run into before is Alderman Polkowski was getting at, no matter how many spaces that were approved by ZBA and by the council, places like West Main Street end up with an awful lot more cars there after the snow covers things, and there's marked out spaces, but places become like a junkyard. It's different from say a Midas, a repair place where the car only stays there for a day at the most. A dealership has to have a certain number of display cars, as you said. I mean, and then you got to have room for customers, you got to have room for employees. So how are you doing that with 20 couples?
Well, okay. There are two things. First of all, as I indicated, Ms. Madison and her family does not want the site to suffer the kind of consequences that you suggest. And so part of the requirements within any lease that is entered into will be that there won't be more cars than there are spaces on the site available for those. We estimate in our parking calculation that there would be, there would be 6 parking spaces for customers, and 19 spaces would be used for vehicles either being offered for sale or being repaired.
So what about employees?
And employees. So 19 spaces contemplates about 8 cars on display for sale, 6 or 7 employees, and then the balance would be cars being serviced. It's only a 2,450 square foot building, so it's not going to be a significant operation where there are many, many cars coming and going. It's designed to be a much lower turnover, lower activity car opportunity than you might see in a much larger space. And the Madison family does not want to create a situation where that would be the outcome, which is why Mr. Dutton has designed the space the way he has.
Thank you.
As Mr. Dutton indicated, right now, if you go along West Main Street, you can't tell where the parking lot ends and the road begins practically. There's no curbing, there's no separation. We've gone to great efforts, we think, to create a separation and limit the areas that are available to park cars. That was part of why we went through the landscape process that we did.
Well, my point was that in the same neighborhood, our experiences, one of them was named after me, was Don's Auto Body or something. They had 50 cars there in a smaller building than you're looking at.
I have absolutely no problem if the council wants to impose a condition that there will be no greater number of cars than there are designated parking spaces on the site. And certainly we would honor that if you impose it as a condition.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Alderman Giantoki.
Thank you, Your Honor. Through you, just going to ask the question one more time, maybe directed to Attorney Sullivan. Mr. Delfino is still a part of this project. He intends to operate CJ Automel LLC at this address?
Yes.
Okay. If you could just come to the mic, I might have another question. I think, like Alderman Naples, I had a couple questions I had hoped to ask him, but
yes, he was here earlier, and I
yeah.
apologize. He had to leave. He wasn't the extended special meeting.
Yep. The business model that he's proposing here is vastly different from the one he had in Berlin.
It is, yes.
Hang on. You know, and the prospect of having 5 or 6 high-end cars and people coming off the internet for these cars is well and good. I think my concern is if that doesn't work, I'm afraid what will happen in that space is what we see everywhere, and what, you know, Alderman Naples and Polkowski both alluded to, is that, you know, 25 spots becomes 40 cars. And we put a moratorium in place, which I know this application was put in before that moratorium, to deal with situations like this. And that becomes my concern, is we put the moratorium in place to tighten up our rules and our ordinances to be able to deal with situations that are of the concern of this body with this project. So, you know, I guess my concern comes in that place where we still don't have the tools in place because of the moratorium to monitor and enforce these things. And while it can be written into a lease that's between the business owner and the property holder, there's no protection for the city. And I think that's my concern on this project. You know, I think that the traffic thing has been answered. The sightline thing is great. You know, having gone to this property quite a bit, I can see where sightlines would be an issue. If that's no longer an issue, that's great. But I think just the intended and possible use of this property is my concern.
Yes, I believe you do have the tools in place. There's a site plan approval, and if that site plan approval is violated, then there can be a zoning enforcement action taken against both the property owner and the tenant.
Okay, because, I mean, this issue is prevalent in a lot of used car lots that we have in the city, so it is of concern to this body.
It would be subject to an enforcement action if the site, any provision of that site, of a site plan approval is violated.
Okay, thank you.
Your Honor.
Alderman Carlozzi.
Thank you, Your Honor. You know, I did not make the meeting, the original meeting that was scheduled for this, but I'm very familiar with the location, having been a resident of Slater Road for the last, I don't know, as long as I'm old, probably as old as I am. So I've been very familiar, as someone mentioned, it was Marine, Mellon Marine, I think at one point over the years. The building has been cleaned up tremendously. I've heard all the questions, all the discussions about site plans and viewing and all of that. This isn't a very straight, you know, look to the right, look to the left. You can see quite a bit, and the road is pretty straight. the question that Alderman D'Antonio mentioned, that we may not necessarily have the tools in place right now, I believe the counselor just really did answer that. We have an expectation and an anticipation that when we sign off on site plans and how many parking spaces there's going to be, that those are going to be adhered to. And yes, we do have, especially used car dealers all over the city, not just in this location, but all over the city, who violate that over and over again. That's on us. That's on us as the city to make sure that our enforcement officers are going out there and citing them for that. And if it means fines, or if it means revoking the licenses because they are repeat offenders, I think we do have those items in place right now. And yes, we have a moratorium because we certainly don't want a used car lot at every corner. But this was also one of those that was in place prior to. I'm trying to grasp. To me, it seems like this is being given a lot extra review, and others are not. I'm hearing a lot about is Delfino with this or not with this, but quite frankly, these individuals have gone above and beyond to lay out their plans. The building's in phenomenal shape. I'm happy that the original owners will still be the owners. They know the building, and it's been in the family for years. I quite frankly, I think they have met. I mean, we got a positive report from city planning. I think I just don't quite frankly understand. These folks have gone over and over and over and over and above, over and above, over and above to get our approval, and I don't understand the resistance. I'm not seeing it. I do see it on some projects. I don't see it on this one, so I will be voting in favor, Your Honor. But I think the tools are in place. It's up to the city to enforce our own zoning and our own approvals. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Alderman Polkowski.
Through you, Your Honor, to Mr. Carlozzi, to Alderman Carlozzi. One of the reasons I actually sit on the zoning committee trying to change these ordinances, one of the problems, the main problems we have with the current regulations as they stand now is for a property exactly like this. What happens is you have a landlord and you have a tenant. So now the tenant is violating our ordinances. There's no recourse or no action that we can do as a city to ticket this tenant. We can ticket the landlord, but that would be incorrect to do, especially in a case like this with the Madisons. It's not the Madisons that are putting more cars on the site. It's actually the business owner. So that's wherein lies the problem, because now we basically have violations, and we do have zoning violations that are out there, but when we go and ticket these people, we have no sustenance to actually be able to collect this money on. We can ticket them as long as we want, but if we have nothing, no physical property to lien on, then unfortunately we can't do anything. And that's where our hands get tied. I just wanted to further explain that point.
Alderman Carlos.
Thank you, Your Honor. To the Alderman's good point that he made, there's a tenant. They're violating the agreement that was made between the city and the owners. Yes, we will send a ticket to the owners. The owners then have to deal with their own tenant. And if that means they're going to break the lease because the tenant has violated so many times, they probably can get them out of the lease and kick them the hell out of there. So, quite frankly, it's going to require the owners to do what they need to do, because we're going to find them and find them and find them and find them again if there's repeat offenses. But I'm sure the owners are smart business people and will put conditions in there that if they continue to violate, if the tenant continues to violate these rules, then they will be out of there. And by the way, we've been asking over and over again, we want to be sure that Delfino is the tenant. So obviously there's some people here that feel that Delfino will do a good job as a tenant. So I'm not sure. I understand your point. I think there are certainly avenues legally that they can get rid of the tenant if that was a problem.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Salerno asked for the floor next.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Yes, thank you, through Your Honor. I really believe it's important to be consistent when we're here on the council, and I want to speak for my own consistency. I have opposed this project. It is not a personal issue. It's a realistic issue about some of the long-term plans. As a member of the City Planning Commission, I sat for over 3.5 years. The discussion of gateway aspects of the community, West Main Street being one of those gateways, has been in the planning process now for, well, we're moving on 6 or 7 or 8 years and maybe longer. One of our concerns was the issue of, again, these types of businesses, not necessarily putting everything in one basket, but the fact that these types of businesses and auto sales have been a problem, an eyesore historically throughout the city. I voted no in that committee. I'm being straightforward to let you know. I plan to vote no tonight. But it had nothing or very little to do with the actual traffic issue. In fact, I believe one of the aldermen and I have a disagreement on that. We all agree that there's traffic, but my position on traffic, I think traffic is good for business, for the right kind of business. And my position was for that particular location, and I'm going to go back just a little bit down the road on West Main Street. We have a facility that used to be a wonderful grocery store. We have a storage facility that's there, and I know I was concerned about the storage facility, not because I don't want business there, but I wanted the proper businesses for my neighborhood, for the community. By the way, I've received calls from people who were concerned about this particular business in that area. There are similar kinds of service businesses on that street. I'm not even challenging that. The question is, how many do we get on that particular street as West Main Street is located? So the traffic problem wasn't a problem for me. Traffic is what it is, and I think that's a state road, for example, and I'm hoping that we're going to go down the road and eventually talk to the state about some of the things they can do in that intersection, because the West Main Street section is really a part of the problem on the Corbin West Main Street area, and it's one of the most heavily trafficked areas in the city. But it's not that we don't want business to have traffic, because that's necessary for success. My position has been, and has been clear, prior to the moratorium, I was, I hope, instrumental in trying to pursue the moratorium on these particular types of sales, auto sales establishments. So I don't feel badly or guilty about that. I'm glad we have it, and I hope we're going to come up with the kind of provisions that Alderman Polkowski has mentioned, and any other kinds of necessities to be able to make these businesses work. I don't expect I'm going to change anybody's vote here on the council. I'm letting people know why. I plan to do this spring something that I plan to walk that entire West Main Street area to assure, to meet with all the businesses in that area, to talk about some of their improvement potentials and what the city can do for them and with them in the existing businesses. So that's my intent, because it is a gateway area. I'm committed to making that West Main Street and other gateway areas in the city conducive to the needs that funnel into the incredible amount of work that we've done in the downtown area to make it more livable, and I really think this is part of it. It's not a personal thing. It's not, for me, the idea of any one particular organization. I, by the way, for the record, reached out to the Madisons. I believe they emailed me. I believe I emailed them back. I said I would be more than happy to meet. Here's my phone number. I never heard from them to discuss those issues. So my position is fairly clear. We've tried to be realistic about that. I don't know if that building can use other kinds of venues in terms of a quality business. I do know that other businesses have actually moved and attempted to talk with the landlords about other businesses that I personally, as an alderman and as a neighbor in the community, might have supported. So I think those are all the factors of why I make that my position not to support this particular project. I feel we've done some due diligence on that. I think the due diligence is carried here, at least from my end of it. And I'm just going to urge that we do not pass this motion.
Alderman Sanders.
Thank you, Your Honor. I think it's more than obvious that the Madisons have gone above and beyond. I think Peter Delfino has gone above and beyond. They've had a great presentation. You know, we have to make decisions based on our current city ordinances. The moratorium's coming to a close. We should have those teeth that everybody's concerned about. And if we don't, shame on us. But to hold them responsible for a potential problem that we're just assuming. We're just assuming that they're going to overload the parking lot. We're assuming they're bad business people. I mean, shame on us for sitting here and throwing out these accusations. You know, this sends out a bad message. I said this at committee level. I've said it in private to people. The recommendation from the City Plan Commission is that it is of the opinion that the site is adequately suited to the proposed auto sales and repair business, that the plan is compliant with the applicable zoning requirements, and that the planned site improvements would improve the appearance of the site. You know, you talk about walking up and down the street to improve the businesses. That's one of the best looking buildings on West Main Street. I think that we've wasted too much time on this. And I mean, these people are driving from Niantic for the third time. For the third time. They've put a ton of money into this property. I mean, they have done everything to the letter of the law according to the city. This has nothing to do with the moratorium. When we put that moratorium in place, we promised each and every person that had an application in that they would get a fair share, a fair shake at doing what they want to do here. I think it's time to give them their fair shake.
Thank you, Alderman. Would any alderman like to speak who hasn't said anything once yet on this issue? Alderman Smedley.
Thank you, Your Honor. Alderman Solano, I commend you. It must be nice to have time to walk up and down West Main Street since you're retired.
Thank you very much, and it really
I don't
is.
speak often, but when I do, it's usually funny. I'm going to come out of left field here and agree with some of my colleagues on the council that this property and project has cleaned up on West Main Street compared to some of the other properties in the area, and that encourages me. I'm happy to see that a building has been revamped, revitalized, and there's a positive plan for improvement. And I have to agree with some of the folks to the left of me here. You're right on the council that we should be able to hold the tenant and or the landlord accountable if the tenant is violating that lease. And I believe in the people that work for us, that work for the city. And those of you in the back of the room know that because I call you sometimes multiple times throughout the day to do your jobs. And most of you do, and I appreciate that. And I think that we can use our staff to hold the property accountable for the rules that we do have set forth. So I will actually be supporting this tonight. Thank you.
Alderman Davis.
Thank you, Your Honor. I rise in support of this resolution. This is one I've actually gone back and forth with a lot, as most of my colleagues have this evening. Earlier, a couple hours ago now, we heard about the financial outlook of both the city and the state. As such, I personally can't, in good conscience, say no to a potential business coming to the city, wanting to come to the city, pay taxes here in the city, knowing what the potential outlook from the state could look like moving forward. The body here has its right to act in the way that it decides to act, but personally, I can't in good conscience say no to a business willing to come here. Now, if there were other business proposals, if we had 10 West Farms malls that wanted to come to the same exact location, then maybe I might, look at it differently. But since we don't have that, at least before us tonight, I will be supporting this proposal.
Anyone else? Alderman Maples.
Just to answer a comment that Alderman Carlosi made, a lot of us are interested in whether Mr. Delfino was still in it. Part of it was because he was the principal in the original application, and another part for me was his past dealings weren't all good with the city. I mean, there's still an empty lot farther down West Main Street that was supposed to be a big office building, and it was a dump for a couple of years until he was forced to take action to clean it up. And there's still nothing there. All we did was lose a church and a couple of historic houses, so that still burns with me. Also, his operation in Berlin wasn't something that I wanted to see on West Main Street. So that's why I was interested in whether he was still in it, and he left before I could ask him about that. If I support this, it's going to be very reluctantly.
It's the beauty of democracy. Right? Any other council member wish to address the issue? Alderman Giantonio.
I have one question. Through you, Your Honor, to actually Alderman Polkowski. Alderman Polkowski, you said you're on the committee looking at the moratorium and the new rules. Do we have any time frame on when that's going to be complete?
I'm looking over to Mr. Malinowski. I believe we're talking about the springtime. I believe it's March, April, somewhere around there.
It's nearly complete now, it's going through its final drafts.
Correct.
So it should be coming to you probably next month to start the process.
Okay. The reason I asked that question is, you know, again, my stated reluctance on this is our lack of the ability to enforce, you know, rules that we want in place. So I was just, you know, if we were 8 months down the road from that is a lot different than starting the process next month. So I appreciate the answers.
Thank you. Very well. Are we ready?
Do a roll call, Your Honor.
Do I have three? I need three to stand. Thank you very much. We're requesting a roll call vote. Mr. Clerk?
All the persons, Giantonio.
No.
Smedley.
Yes.
Carlozzi.
Yes.
Collins.
No.
Davis.
Yes.
Hargraves.
Yes.
Naples.
Yes.
Pabon.
No.
Polkowski.
No.
Rosado.
No.
Sanchez.
Yes.
Sanders.
Yes.
Salerno.
No.
7-6, Your Honor. Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. On to
Congratulations.
resolution number 3, Alderman Giantonio.
Thank you, Your Honor. I make a motion to accept and refer item number 3 to the Committee on Planning, Zoning, and Housing.
Seconded by Alderman Collins.
Thank you, Your Honor. This has to do with a cell phone tower agreement at the Stanley Golf Course, and I urge referral.
Any questions or comments on this? This will stand to gain us an annual revenue contract with Verizon Wireless of $30,000 a year. All those in favor of the referral signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Alderman Giantonio.
Thank you, Your Honor. Motion to accept and adopt resolution number 4.
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Salerno.
Thank you, Your Honor. This resolution, as everyone knows, our former Director of Personnel resigned, and we created a new Director of Human Resources position. That position was posted. There were 7 applicants. An independent outside panel of human resource professionals was put together by the mayor. They put forward 3 finalists who were then interviewed, and the name Linda Gard is being put forward by the mayor as the new Director of Human Resources. Everyone has her resume on their desk. You know, from my discussions, I heard that she was far and away the best candidate, and very qualified for the job, and very eager to jump in and start working in the city of New Britain, and I urge approval.
Thank you very much. If there are any questions about the process, they can be directed towards Chief of Staff Jody Latina or Corp Counsel Gennaro Bizzaro. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Resolution number 5, Alderman Pabon.
Make a motion to accept and adopt a resolution for.
Second.
And referring to consulate committee.
Seconded by Alderman Rosado.
This is gonna be an ordinance change to -20-31 to allow the police chief authority to approve all department policies and the police commissioners. And, I urge approval. No, referral.
Referral. Thank you. It's just cleaning up language in our ordinances so that Chief Wardwell is happy. All those in favor of the referral signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Resolution number 6, Alderman Giantonio.
Thank you, Your Honor. I make a motion to accept and refer item number 6 to the Committee on Planning, Zoning, and Housing.
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Salerno.
Thank you, Your Honor. This item has to do with a sale of property known as 65 Kilbourne Avenue for $30,000 to Tony and Pamela Bianca, and I urge referral, and we'll discuss more at Planning, Zoning, and Housing.
Thank you very much. Questions, comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Alderman Giantonio.
Thank you, Your Honor. Make a motion to accept and refer item number 7 to the Committee on Planning, Zoning, and Housing, and also the CCND Commission.
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Salerno.
Thank you, Your Honor. This has to do with the conveyance of property at 266 Arch Street to Neighborhood Housing Services, and I urge referral.
Any questions or comments about this? Talk about it in committee. Oh, Alderman Rosado.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just briefly want to say that I was, and I did say this before public participation, neighborhood housing did come together and meet with different people in regards to that sale. Was able to see the presentation and some of the things that they desire to do to that property. And I think a lot of it is some positive developments. And again, I think the major thing to me is that they are really committed to making sure that that property is maintained. And I think that we need more people willing to invest in our city that are willing to maintain their properties as well as provide the security for those that are going to be occupying the units. So I'm in favor of this all the way.
Thank you. I know the Director of Neighborhood Housing Services is here if anyone has any initial questions, but I'm sure we'll do that in committee. So seeing no one else around the circle, all those in favor of the referral, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Alderman Giantonio.
Thank you, Your Honor. Make a motion to accept and refer item number 8 to the Committee on Planning, Zoning, and Housing.
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Sanders.
We are obviously going to have a long PZH meeting next time. But the sale of property, so it's good. This also has to do with the sale of property, 66 Winthrop Street, for a price of $20,000 to Marion Orlowski, and I urge referral.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments on the referral? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. You're a hog tonight.
I am. Your Honor, I make a motion to accept and adopt item number 9.
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Rosado.
Thank you, Your Honor. Item number 9 has to do with the city purchasing 3 properties, 2 Atwood Street, 6 Atwood Street, and 8 Atwood Street. These are for the Smalley Academy renovation project. These will be paid for out of the Smalley construction bond, and the purchase by the city of these properties is dependent on us receiving the bonding. So we approve it today, we don't get the bond, we don't buy them. Mr. Moore is here, and Mr. Moore, I'd actually like to ask you to come up to the podium. I have a quick question for you.
Good evening, Alderman, Mayor. My name is Ray Moore. I'm the Facilities Director of New Britain Board of Ed.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Through you, Your Honor, to Mr. Moore. Without giving too much away, because I know there's ongoing negotiations going on, we have a purchase price on here for 6 Atwood Street and 8 Atwood Street, but we don't have anything for 2 Atwood Street. Procedurally, how will this work? Is there a price to be negotiated? Would you have to come back here, or are we approving the sale and approving the negotiations of that sale price as well?
Well, a lot of questions enveloped in that. We have a sales agreement signed on 2 of the properties, 6 and 8.
Yes.
2 Atwood Street has been repossessed by a bank, and we're in negotiation with that bank to acquire that property from the bank. We're confident that we'll be able to get that one from the bank. The other 2 properties, the owners are anxious to sell, and we know that we may not. We're waiting on a legislation approval from the state.
Okay. Just to give us a general idea, do we have any idea what the value of 2 Atwood Street is? I mean, are we talking 50 or 200 grand, without giving too much away in your negotiations, obviously.
2 and 6 Atwood Street are valued less than $100,000. Okay. 8 Atwood Street is a 3-family house and is valued at around less than $140,000.
Okay. Okay. So I think from that we can at least get an idea of the value of the property that's still in negotiation. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Moore.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Moore from around the circle? Alderman Carlozzi is pretty good. Did you have a question?
No.
Okay.
I said, no, just let's get that money.
Yeah, that's true. Seeing no other questions? We shall.
No, Polkowski.
Oh, Alderman Polkowski. Thank you.
Mr. Moore, if these properties are acquired, what will happen to Atwood Street?
Atwood Street would ask the city to turn it over to the Board of Ed, and we'll use it for parking and part of the addition for Smalley School.
Perfect. Make sure the discontinuance is filed and all that. Thank you.
We'll leave that up to Alderman Collins to make sure he's on top of that coming from the school building committee. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Moore. Alderman Giantonio.
Your Honor, motion to accept and refer item 10 to the Committee on Administration, Finance, and Law.
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Salerno.
Thank you, Your Honor. This ordinance has to do with updating our code of ordinances regarding residency requirements. We've done this a few times, and I think we're doing this for one final time instead of coming back every time we want to change this. We're putting in some, I guess, final language on what the residency requirements for department heads would be. I urge referral, and we will discuss more at Admin, Finance, and Law.
Thanks. It's also important to note that this is here because our department heads are changing with the reorg structure, and also some of our department head positions have been negotiated out of the 818 union, which changes the requirements for residency. Alderman Carlos.
Thank you, Your Honor. I know it's a referral, but
Yep.
just a question. Earlier this year, we did eliminate Finance Director, and we did eliminate Human Resources Director, but yet in this, what we're looking at tonight, there were strikeouts, so those things should have already been stricken out, correct?
That would be a Corp Council question.
I mean, we already took action on, it looks as if we're going to do that now.
Probably because the original language still remains, like the as amended still remains, right?
We've acted on this, Your Honor, through you to our Corporation Council, but it looks like Alderman Antonio wants to answer.
As the author of this resolution, that was an oversight. We can fix it in committee to reflect the current language right now with the changes that we're talking about here.
Okay, so we could do
That
a
was
strike
just
all,
an
we could do a
oversight.
strike all in committee
Yes.
and clean up
Yep.
the language properly. Thank you.
Thank you.
So just so I understand this?
Yes,
hold
Your
on.
Honor.
So this is the original language from before we amended it before?
Correct.
Thank you. If that made sense. Thank you. So you will make a note to fix that in committee.
Yes, we will.
Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion to
Carries.
adjourn.
Motion to adjourn made by Alderman Sanders, seconded by Alderman Hargraves. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. The time
opposed,
is
Your Honor.
9:33 p.m. We will see you on January 25th.
I'm opposed.